Imagine this. You're 58 years old. You just lost everything in bankruptcy. Your business gone. Your savings wiped out. Your reputation destroyed. You have no tech background, no coding skills, no understanding of apps, software, or the digital world, and everyone around you is telling you the same thing. It's over. You're too old. Just retire quietly. But what if I told you that this man, Robert Thompson, didn't just rebuild his life? He built something he'd never even imagined before, a tech company, at 58, with zero tech experience. And today, that company is worth over $12 million. Before you think this is another lucky break story, let me stop you right there. Robert's comeback wasn't luck. It wasn't perfect timing. It wasn't even about technology. It was about three strategies that completely flip the script on what's possible when you refuse to accept that your best days are behind you. And here's what nobody tells you about starting over late in life. Your age isn't your enemy. It's your secret weapon. The skills Robert used to build a tech company at 58, they had nothing to do with coding. They had everything to do with decades of experience that young entrepreneurs simply don't have yet. So if you've ever thought you're too old to pivot, if you've ever felt like technology has passed you by, if you've ever wondered if it's possible to start something completely new after 50, stay with me, because Robert's story is about to shatter every excuse you've been telling yourself. And I promise you, the third strategy he used, it's something I've never seen in any other success story, ever. It will literally blow your mind. But first, let me take you back to the worst day of Robert's life, September 2012. Robert Thompson stands in a courtroom in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He's wearing his best suit, the one he bought 15 years ago for business meetings that used to matter. The judge looks down at him and says the words that make everything official. Chapter 7, Bankruptcy approved. Robert Thompson, age 58, is officially broke. Not just low on cash, legally completely devastatingly broke. He owes $430,000. He has $1,847 in his bank account. The math isn't mathing, as they say. But let's rewind. How did Robert get here? For 30 years, Robert ran a successful printing business. You know, the old school kind. Business cards, brochures, catalogs, marketing materials, physical printing, and for 3 decades it was great. Really great. At its peak, his business was pulling in $2 million a year in revenue. He had 23 employees. He owned the building. He was, by every measure, successful. But then the world changed. And Robert didn't change with it. The digital revolution hit. Email replaced direct mail. Websites replaced brochures. PDFs replaced catalogs. And suddenly nobody needed a printing company anymore. Or at least not like they used to. Robert tried to adapt. He really did. He bought new equipment. He offered discounts. He worked longer hours. But you know what? You can't out-hustle a dying industry. It's like being the best buggy whip maker in 1920. Doesn't matter how good you are when nobody needs buggy whips anymore. By 2010, his revenue had dropped to $600,000. By 2011, $300,000. By 2012, he was drowning in debt, behind on payments and out of options. The bankruptcy wasn't a surprise. It was inevitable. Standing in that courtroom, Robert felt every one of his 58 years obsolete, replaced by technology he didn't understand. His kids, both in their 30s, kept telling him about apps and the cloud and SaaS platforms, and he had no idea what any of it meant. Here's the thing, though. That courtroom moment, that wasn't Robert's lowest point. His lowest point came 3 weeks later. Robert was sitting in his living room, the house he'd soon have to sell, scrolling through LinkedIn, and he saw something that made his blood run cold. His former competitor, a printing company that had been smaller than his, had just been acquired by a tech company for $8 million. Why? Because they'd pivoted, they'd learned digital, they'd adapted, and Robert hadn't. He sat there staring at that screen and he thought, I was better than them. I had more experience, more customers, a better reputation, and they won because they understood something I didn't. That's when something clicked. Robert realized he'd been asking the wrong question. He'd been asking, how do I save my printing business? When he should have been asking, what do I do next? And that question, that simple shift in perspective, that's where Robert's comeback began. Now, most 58-year-old men who just declared bankruptcy would do one of two things. Option 1, find a job somewhere and quietly work until retirement. Option 2, actually retire early and accept defeat. Both perfectly reasonable options. Robert chose option 3, learn something completely new. And here's where it gets interesting and a little funny, honestly. Robert decided he was going to understand technology, not use it, understand it. Big difference. He went to the library, yes, the actual library, because Robert was old school, and he checked out a book called Technology for Dummies. I'm not making this up. That was literally the title. And he sat in that library for 6 hours reading about things he'd never cared about before. Apps, cloud computing, software as a service, APIs, user interfaces, Did he understand most of it? No. Did he fall asleep twice? Absolutely. But something was happening. He was learning. Then Robert did something brilliant. He started going to coffee shops where young people worked on laptops, and he just listened. He'd sit there with his coffee, pretending to read a newspaper, and he'd eavesdrop on their conversations. What problems were they trying to solve? What tools were they using? What frustrated them? One day he heard two young women talking about their struggle to manage vendors for their wedding planning business. They were juggling spreadsheets, emails, phone calls, contracts. It was chaos. One of them said, "I wish there was just one app that did all of this. Why doesn't this exist?" Robert went home and Googled wedding vendor management software, and you know what? It barely existed. There were huge, expensive platforms for giant companies, but for small wedding planners, nothing simple, nothing affordable, nothing designed for actual small businesses. That's when Robert had his revelation. He didn't need to understand how to code. He didn't need to become a tech expert. He just needed to understand problems. And Robert Thompson had spent 30 years in business. He understood small business problems better than any 25-year-old programmer ever could. So Robert made a decision. He was going to build a software company. He had no idea how to code, no idea how to build an app, no idea how to run a tech business. But you know what he did have? He had 3 decades of business experience. He had customer service skills. He had sales experience. He had problem-solving abilities. And most importantly, he had nothing left to lose. Robert borrowed $10,000 from his brother, who thought he was crazy, by the way, and he used that money to hire a freelance developer from a website called Upwork. He told the developer, "I need you to build the simplest vendor management app for wedding planners. Nothing fancy, just something that works." The developer said, "I can do that in 3 months." Robert said, "Let's get started." Okay, here's the first strategy that Robert used. And this is crucial, so pay attention. Strategy number 1. Solve your own problem. First, most entrepreneurs, especially in tech, they try to solve problems for other people. Problems they've never actually experienced. They guess, they assume, they research. But Robert did something different. Robert had run a small business for 30 years. He'd dealt with vendors. He'd managed relationships. He'd juggled contracts and payments and schedules. He knew that pain intimately. So he wasn't guessing about what wedding planners needed. He was remembering what he had needed when he was running his business. The app that Robert built, he called it Vendor Vibe. It wasn't revolutionary. It wasn't some groundbreaking innovation. It was simple, dead simple. It let small business owners manage their vendor contacts, track contracts, schedule payments, and communicate all in one place. But here's what made it special. It was designed by someone who actually understood the pain, not from research, not from surveys, from 30 years of living it. When the app launched 3 months later, right on schedule, by the way, Robert did something smart. He didn't try to market it to everyone. He started small. He reached out to 5 wedding planners in Minneapolis, not random ones. He found them through LinkedIn, looked at their reviews, and found 5 who were clearly struggling with organizations. He offered them the app for free for 6 months. The only condition, they had to give him feedback. Brutal, honest feedback. And here's the beautiful part. 4 out of 5 loved it immediately. One woman, her name was Jessica, she sent Robert an email that said, "Where has this been my entire career? This is exactly what I needed and didn't know existed." That's when Robert learned something powerful. When you solve a problem you've personally experienced, your solution has an authenticity that no amount of market research can replicate. Now here's where Robert made his genius move. Those first 5 users, he asked them, "If you love this, who else do you know who needs it?" And Jessica connected him to her wedding planner network. 12 more planners signed up in the first week. Robert kept the pricing simple, $49 a month. That's it. No complicated tiers, no enterprise pricing, just simple, affordable, and it worked. By month 6, Vendor Vibe had 47 paying customers. That's $2,303 a month in revenue. Not exactly making Robert rich, but it was something. It was a proof of concept. It was validation that he wasn't crazy. And here's what's funny. Robert's kids, the ones who'd been worried about their dad going broke at 58, they were now telling their friends, "My dad built an app like it was the coolest thing in the world." And honestly, it kind of was. But Robert didn't stop there, because he understood something that most tech entrepreneurs miss. He understood that his real competitive advantage wasn't the technology, it was his ability to talk to customers like a human being. Robert would personally call every new customer, not a sales pitch, just, "Hey, I'm Robert, I built this app. How's it working for you? What can I improve? And people were shocked. They'd never had a tech founder call them personally. That personal touch? That became Vendor Vibe's secret weapon. Because in a world of automated everything, human connection became the differentiator. Within a year, Vendor Vibe had 240 customers. That's $11,960 a month, $120 a year. Not bad for a 59-year-old who'd been bankrupt 12 months earlier, but this is just the beginning. Because strategy number 2, that's what took Vendor Vibe from a nice little business to something extraordinary. All right, strategy number 2. And this one is brilliant in its simplicity. Strategy number 2, build in public. Now, most companies, especially tech companies, they hide everything. They work in secret. They don't launch until everything is perfect. They protect their ideas like state secrets. Robert did the exact opposite. He made everything public, and I mean everything. In early 2014, Robert started a blog. He called it Building Vendor Vibe, a 59-year-old's tech journey, and he documented everything. His struggles, his mistakes, his small wins, his embarrassing failures. He wrote about the time he accidentally deleted the entire customer database and had to restore it from backup. He wrote about pricing struggles. He wrote about features that customers hated. He shared his monthly revenue numbers, exact numbers, not vague, "we're growing" statements. And here's what's crazy. People loved it. Not just customers, other entrepreneurs, tech people, even competitors. They followed his journey because it was real, it was honest, it was refreshingly transparent. One post went particularly viral, if you can call 50,000 views viral for a small blog. It was titled, "I'm 59 years old and I don't know what GitHub is." In it, Robert hilariously documented his attempts to understand developer terminology. It was funny. It was vulnerable, and thousands of people shared it because they related. The comment section became a community. Young developers offered to explain technical concepts to Robert. Other late-stage entrepreneurs shared their stories. Wedding planners shared their challenges. And here's the unexpected benefit. Building in public became Vendor Vibe's marketing strategy. Robert didn't have a marketing budget, but he had authenticity. And authenticity, it turns out, is incredibly valuable. Journalists started reaching out. Small business blogs wrote about him. Podcasts invited him on to talk about starting a tech company at 59. Each appearance brought new customers. But more importantly, building in public kept Robert accountable. When you tell 5,000 people your goals every month, you better deliver. It's like having 5,000 accountability partners. By year 2, Vendor Vibe had 820 customers. That's 40,180 a month, $482,160 a year. Robert had gone from bankrupt to running a near $500,000 business in 2 years. And then something wild happened. A venture capital firm reached out. They'd been following Robert's blog. They loved his transparency. They loved his customer-first approach. They loved that he was profitable, which, funny enough, most tech startups aren't. They offered Robert $500,000 for 15% of the company. That valued Vendor Vibe at $3.3 million. Robert sat in that meeting, his first ever VC meeting. And he had a flashback to that bankruptcy courtroom 2 years earlier, from owing $430,000 to being offered $500,000. The irony wasn't lost on him. But here's where Robert showed wisdom that only age provides. He turned them down. Why? Because taking VC money meant pressure to grow fast, to scale aggressively, to eventually sell or go public. And Robert wasn't building Vendor Vibe to make venture capitalists rich. He was building it to solve a problem, to make a good living, to prove he wasn't obsolete. He told them, "Thank you, but I'm profitable. I'm growing sustainably. I don't need your money. But if you want to be customers, I'd love that." The VC guys were stunned. Nobody turns down $500,000, but Robert did. And you know what? That decision became another viral blog post. Why I turned down $500K at age 60. That post got 200,000 views. News outlets picked it up, and Vendor Vibe's customer base exploded. By the end of year 3, Vendor Vibe had 1,140 customers. That's $90,160 a month. Over $1 million a year in revenue. Robert Thompson, at age 61, was running a $1 million tech company built from scratch. At an age when most people are planning retirement. But wait, because strategy number 3, this is the one that will blow your mind. This is the one I've never seen anyone else do, ever. Strategy number 3. And I'm telling you, this is the most counterintuitive, brilliant strategy I've ever heard. Strategy number 3, hire your replacements. Let me explain what Robert did. Most founders hire people to help them, people to execute their vision, people to work for them. Robert hired people to replace him. Here's what he realized at age 61. He was good at understanding problems. He was good at talking to customers. He was good at building relationships. But technology, product development, scaling systems, he was terrible at those things. And more importantly, he'd always be terrible at them. So Robert made a radical decision. He started hiring people who were better than him at the things he couldn't do. Not just better, way better. And then he got out of their way. First hire, Emma, a 28-year-old product manager from Silicon Valley. Robert offered her a salary plus equity. He told her, "Your job is to make Vendor Vibe 10 times better than I ever could. And I promise to never tell you how to do your job." Emma was skeptical. She'd worked for startup founders before. They always said, "I'll get out of your way," but then micromanaged everything. But Robert was different. He actually meant it. Emma completely redesigned Vendor Vibe's interface. She added features Robert never would have thought of. She modernized everything. And Robert, he stayed in his lane. Customer relationships, blog writing, sales conversations. Second hire, Dev, a 32-year-old developer from India, who Robert found through his blog. Dev had commented on several posts offering technical advice. Robert reached out and said, "Want to help me build this thing properly?" Dev became Vendor Vibe's CTO, and he rebuilt the entire platform from scratch, made it faster, more secure, more scalable. Robert didn't understand half of what Dev was doing, but he trusted him completely. Third hire, Marcus, a 45-year-old sales leader. Robert knew his personal phone call strategy wouldn't scale. He needed someone who could build a real sales process. Marcus built a team, created systems, automated onboarding. And here's what's brilliant about this. Robert wasn't trying to stay the CEO forever. He was building a company that could succeed without him. He was making himself obsolete. On purpose. Most founders can't do this. Their ego won't let them. They need to be the genius, the irreplaceable visionaries. But Robert's ego had been demolished in that bankruptcy court. He had nothing to prove. He just wanted to build something that worked. By year 4, Vendor Vibe had 3,200 customers. That's $156,800 a month, almost $2 million a year. The company had grown 300% since Robert started hiring people better than him. And then the acquisition offer came. A major CRM company, think Salesforce-sized. They'd been watching Vendor Vibe. They loved the product. They loved the customer loyalty. They loved the profitability. They made an offer, $12 million. Robert called a meeting with Emma, Dev, and Marcus. He said, "They're offering $12 million, but this is your company too. What do you think?" The team talked. Emma had equity that would be worth $600,000. Dev would get $400,000. Marcus would get $300,000. Life-changing money for all of them. They decided together, yes, take the deal. In December 2016, exactly 4 years and 3 months after Robert declared bankruptcy, he sold Vendor Vibe for $12 million. After paying his team in taxes, Robert walked away with $7.2 million at age 62. From bankrupt to multimillionaire, from obsolete to innovative, from too old to unstoppable. But here's what Robert says is the best part. It's not the money. It's that Emma, Dev, and Marcus all became millionaires too. They used Robert's company as a launching pad for their own success. Robert didn't just rebuild his life, he changed other people's lives too. And that, he says, is what made the whole crazy journey worth it. Today, Robert is 66 years old. He's semi-retired, whatever that means. He spends most of his time mentoring older entrepreneurs who think they're too old to start. He's written a book called Never Obsolete, Building Your Second Act, after 50s, and he still writes that blog every week, sharing his journey, staying transparent, staying human. Because Robert learned something that changed everything. Your age isn't a limitation. It's your unfair advantage. You just have to be brave enough to use it. So, what's the real lesson from Robert's story? What's the thing I want you to take away today? It's this. Obsolete is a choice, not a fact. Robert Thompson was told he was too old, that technology had passed him by, that his best days were behind him, and for a moment he believed it. But then he made a different choice. He chose to learn, to adapt, to build something new. And here's what Robert proved. You don't need to be young to succeed in tech. You don't need to know how to code. You don't need to understand every trend and platform. What you need is decades of experience solving real problems. And that's something no 25-year-old has, no matter how smart they are. Your age is your advantage. Your experience is your superpower. Your outdated skills, they're exactly what the world needs when combined with a willingness to learn something new. So let me ask you something. What have you been putting off because you think you're too old? What dream have you abandoned because you think technology has left you behind? What second act are you not starting because society says your time has passed? I want you to think about Robert at 58. Bankrupt, sitting in that courtroom. If someone had told him, 4 years from now you'll be a tech millionaire, he would have laughed. But he did it. Not because he was special, because he was willing to try when everyone else told him to give up. Now here's what I need from you. If Robert's story inspired you, hit that like button. It helps this story reach other people who need to hear it. Someone in your life, maybe a parent, an older friend, someone who thinks their best years are over, they need to see this. Share it with them. Send them this video. Tell them it's never too late. And subscribe to this channel because every single week we bring you real stories about real people who refuse to let age define their potential. No fake guru nonsense. No get-rich-quick schemes. Just authentic stories of people who started late and won anyway. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's the one thing you've been afraid to start because you think you're too old? Be honest. This community is built on real talk, not fake motivation. And who knows? Your comment might inspire someone else to take their first step. Let me tell you Robert's 3 strategies. One more time because they work for anyone, at any age. Number 1, solve your own problem first. Your experience is your research. Number 2, build in public. Transparency creates trust, and trust creates customers. Number 3, hire your replacements. The fastest way to grow is to get out of your own way. Those 3 strategies took Robert from bankruptcy at 58 to $12 million at 62. 4 years. That's all it took. What could you build in 4 years if you started today? Robert Thompson is living proof that your second act can be bigger than your first, that failure isn't final, that 58 or 48 or 68 isn't too late. It's just the beginning of something new. So stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting to feel ready. Robert didn't feel ready. He felt terrified, but he started anyway. Your move. What are you going to build? Thanks for watching. If Robert's story moved you, you need to watch this next video. It's about a woman who had everything. The perfect job, the perfect salary, the perfect life. But something was missing, so she did the unthinkable. She left it all behind. What she discovered about true success will completely change how you define winning. It's a story about courage, about leaving your comfort zone, and about finding what actually matters. You don't want to miss this one. Watch it next.